Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Caring Economy with me, Toby Usnik. I'm honored today to have Hervé Duteil, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer for the Americas for the French banking conglomerate BNP Paribas. I noticed when I first connected with Hervé that his title on LinkedIn was Happy Chief Sustainability Vision Officer, HCSVO, which is a title I've never seen before, but I like the spirit of it. So Hervé, kudos to you. Can you tell us a little bit about Hervé Duteil and which title you prefer and how you got where you got today?
Sure. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending where you are. And Toby, thank you very much for having me today. So by way of background, before I get to the title, I've always worked at BNP Paribas, always in the US, something you cannot tell from listening to me, except maybe for 18 months in Australia. The first 20 years I spent in financial derivatives, primarily as a trader. And about 6 years ago, early 2014, I decided voluntarily to step out from the trading floor, to move to something totally different, which at the time was to take the helm of corporate social responsibility at BNP Paribas for the Americas. It was the first position, and I quickly proposed to rename or to create actually a new position, being the position of CSO, Chief Sustainability Officer. And the point was at the time was really to put a focus on the fact that it's all about business. It's not about dealing with the surplus that we have, be it surplus of time, surplus of money, but rather dealing with the core of what we do. And as a bank, a commercial bank, a retail bank, an investment bank, the core of what we do is business. So I thought that the one way of unlinking our corporate response, the social responsibility of our corporate from philanthropy, volunteering, green initiatives, but really relink it to the core of our business was really to focus on sustainability and therefore to rename the position CSO.
So you sort of decoupled the traditional associated functions and realities to really go to your core.
That's right. That's right. So now, when you come to the LinkedIn title, two things. First, why did I change on my LinkedIn to? So first of all, I had it on my LinkedIn happy because as you just mentioned, it's all about being disruptive. It's about refocusing on what matters. And as we know, every 50 years, we need to refocus on what matters. And I think in the first decade of this century, and as the 2008 crisis highlighted, we probably had deviated a little bit from what we need to focus. So disruption is a good way to refocus the masses on what truly matters today. And so adding the word happy in front of CSO is a way to create this disruption and create this interrogation. Now, fast forward to nearly today, every bank has a CSO, and it was cool to be a CSO in 2014 in banking when there were no CSOs, but I find it totally uncool nowadays to be a CSO when Goldman Sachs has a CSO, Morgan Stanley has a CSO, and Citibank has a CSO. So that's one reason I changed it to a Chief Sustainability Vision Officer. The second reason is actually, in truth, a CSO at a bank is a misnomer. We're not, for the most part, an operational entity. We're not dealing with warehouses, we're factories, where you can truly have true sustainability impact. We're really a service firm, we're an intermediary. And where we have the most impact is not truly is not really through our direct footprint, through our direct dealings, but it's really through our clients. And that's where having a vision and communicating this vision, inspiring others with this vision, inspiring clients with this vision is where we truly have impact, because they are the ones who are on the ground who really delivers things. All we do is financing them. So I think that's really what you really have or need within banking and sustainability. It's actually vision officers that can show the trajectory, show the roadmap, and then take along everyone around.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we're with Hervé Duteil, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer for the Americas for BNP Paribas, I believe the 8th largest bank now in the world. Hervé, yes, vision is so critical, but I also write in my book, The Caring Economy, about leadership and how it's very much also the execution. And you've been executing from the start. You were really quite a pioneer, as you said, when you moved from the trading floor into this role. So talk a little bit about where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Where does the execution happen at BNP Paribas around sustainability? How do you know your clients are getting what they signed up for?
Sure. So broadly speaking, I would say there are 3 angles the bank can have action. The first, which others than me truly in the bank have built over the last 20 plus years, is first all about what we choose not to do, or what we choose to do the best way. And that's the defensive part of corporate social responsibility. And CSR within a bank is very much around risk management. So choosing your clients, deciding which client you're going to service, deciding which client you're going to advocate better ways of operating, especially in sensitive sectors like mining, like agriculture, like oil and gas sectors, or defense. BNP Paribas has been really a leader in establishing very sound so-called ESG policies to choose the clients we deal with, and more importantly, to communicate the standards we consider best in class, and we wish to accompany our clients to it. So that's the first stone, or first pillar, if you wish, our action. The second, again, staying in the traditional first, is everything around engagement of our stakeholders. So broadening from environmental issues more to social issues, from our suppliers to clients to retail consumers. The bank has had a lot of actions helping communities where we're located, serving clients who are in underserved regions, etc. So that's the second angle of action. The third and last, I think, which is really the exciting one of the last 6 years, is what I call sustainable finance. So it's building on the defensive, of course, but now crafting products that's going to accelerate the sustainability endeavors of our client. And the whole idea here is basically, when you finance a corporation that is using the funds towards sustainable projects, or if you don't want to look for the sustainable project, you don't want to trace the capital expenditures, but if you're financing a company that is holistically recognized as a best-in-class sustainable corporations, and yet that is striving to do better, well, the whole idea is, when you're financing those projects or companies, trying to, if we can provide incremental benefits through the financing, when that financing clearly relate to sustainability performance. So that's been the whole premise behind sustainable finance over the last 6 years. Sustainable investing has been around for a long time. It started maybe in the early 70s, truly, but the focus there was on building portfolios that were gathering securities from companies that were good from an environmental, social, and governance perspective. Here, we're not looking at portfolios. We're really looking at individual companies and what we can do when we're financing them one by one. So that's been the rise of sustainable finance. So the idea is to provide incremental benefits. Those benefits can be, of course, a better funding rate. This, of course, please clients, but actually if they can achieve a better funding rate because they are demonstrating that they are reducing greenhouse gas emissions, let's say, at a fast pace, good for them. But it can be also the ability to reach a broader set of investors. You have sustainable investors that would not buy securities from companies that have not been stamped sustainable. It can be an opportunity to communicate of your sustainability strategy to the financial community. It can be PR, it can be many things. So these are some of the benefits that sustainable finance is bringing to borrowers in the banking market and in the public investor market. Now, and that will be my final word on this, what we've done truly, and that's where it gets really most exciting, it's to create a race to the top. Sustainable finance, let's be clear, is not truly financing things that would not be financed anyway. So a green bond is nice, but quite frankly, most projects that have been financed with green bonds could have been financed with regular bonds. But where it gets exciting, it's the race, what I call the race to the top that it creates. As borrowers are starting to use those sustainable financing products, they are showcasing their sustainability initiatives. They are shining in bright light, if I may say, and they can do so because behind they have done or they're doing the sustainability efforts that are necessary to use those products. And as their peers see that, it creates this incentive to emulate them. So all of a sudden we create categories between green and brown, green and greener, greener and greenest, and it creates, and human greed, if you wish, takes over, and people compete to outbest each other. The good news is it's to outbest for the best, for the better of society.
Great. So Hervé, again, ladies and gentlemen, we're with Hervé Duteil, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer in the Americas for BNP Paribas, the French banking giant. Hervé, can you give us a couple of examples of what success looks like in terms of sustainable finance? Maybe some household names or stories that we may have seen in the news would be attributable to BNP, at least in part.
Sure. So I'll give you two examples. One is, it's a concept in a way we pioneered in mainstream finance. The first generation of product that sustainable finance has seen is what we call the labeled use of proceeds products. So the most famous one is the so-called green bond. And the whole idea is it's a regular bond, but the issuer of the bond is committing to use the funds for, let's say, some green purposes, such as building wind farms. The second generation of product has moved away from looking at how the funds are being used, but instead is looking forward and is going to look at future outcomes. And we're going to measure the impact over the years. And if the impact, if the measurements is meeting some targets, the borrower will get a reduction in interest rate. And conversely, if the results are past a certain negative threshold, let's say, there will be a penalty associated with that. So I'll give you two stories along that. The very first time we applied it was in 2016, if I'm not right, if I'm not wrong, in supply chain financing. With Puma, you know, the sportswear manufacturer. Puma came to us, and we wanted to look at a product where we could give incentives to their suppliers to do better on sustainability performance. So banks have been financing supply chains for large corporations forever. It's kind of a win-win situation. The large corporate, such as Puma, wants to pay as late as possible, like 3 months later than when they do the purchase. Conversely, the supplier, especially in emerging markets, is cash constrained and wants the money right away. So banks have been doing those type of financings forever, where we give the cash immediately to the supplier at a discount, but we discount the invoice at a credit rate that is reflective of the large corporate. So in other words, the small supplier in emerging market can borrow money for 3 months at the rate of Puma or any Fortune 500 companies. Now, the wrinkle we introduced was that this interest rate would move up or down by a significant amount depending on the supplier's performance along some sustainability criteria. So all of a sudden, a plain vanilla financing mechanism becomes a lever of change where the large corporate can use it as a lever to force transformation at the supplier level. And it's either to have a better sustainability performance from a holistic perspective, but it could be to have better water efficiency. Think of a fast food companies that's buying potatoes from farmers. Water being used is very important. Or let's say for a garment, in the garment industry, if you want to make sure that your suppliers have fire escapes in the factories, anyway, you can choose any criteria and associate a incentive or financial penalty to that. So this was the beginning, and this whole idea has since made its way into regular loans, revolving credit facilities, and lately bond, and that will be my second short story around this. Enel, the large Italian power utility, last fall issued 3 bonds which incorporated this sustainability mechanism. So in the first one in September that was issued in US dollar, it was a 5-year bond. Enel at the time had, I believe, 45.9% of installed renewable energy capacity. 2.5 years later, so halfway through the life of the bond, we're going to remeasure this installed renewable energy capacity. And if it is below 55%, so in other words, if Enel hasn't moved from nearly 46% today to 55% in 2.5 years, the coupon on the bond will step up by 25 basis points, which will be more expensive for Enel. So Enel is truly putting its money where its word is, ready to pay a penalty if they don't reach those targets.
So those 2 examples are quite striking. I wonder, when you're speaking about the Puma example, 2016, was Joachim Zeitz was still running Puma then? Was he involved in that process at all?
I would not know.
Because he's been quite a visionary leader. I've written about him in the book. But the reason I ask about that is just because I think leadership is so important when doing any undertaking, but particularly in the area of sustainability. I wonder if you might talk a little bit about that because you have this great macro view, right? You look across industries, sectors, the globe. What would you say about leadership in terms of impact and that sort of race to the top?
I would absolutely agree. First, while I could not answer on your specific question with regard to Puma, Puma is very known for being for having very strong sustainability policies, and so their parent company, Kering has a huge sustainability focus through its many subsidiaries, and that certainly explains why they were such a pioneer in using this sustainable supply chain financing solution 4 or 5 years ago. More broadly, leadership indeed is key. But leadership is at all levels. And actually, I think, of course, top-down leadership, and I will come to it, ultimately is absolutely necessary. But if there is one change between last century and this century, is that leadership has moved from the top-down direction. Leadership has moved away from being linear into being much more distributed through networks, through social networks, etc. And the way we achieved this truly revolution within BNP Paribas' corporate investment banking division. Just to recall, BNP Paribas has 3 main lines of activities: retail banking, corporate investment banking, and asset management. And this financing story takes place in that second division, which is the investment banking division, the financing arm, if you wish, of a large corporation. So the story we created at BNP Paribas CIB started as a bottom-up story. It was people who really came from the front office lines, and within their division, or in my case, opening a new chapter in their career, really ask themselves, how can we have a marked impact with what we do every day, not with the volunteer hours we spend here and there, not with the philanthropy efforts that we do, but how, with what I do every day, can I have an impact? And quite honestly, within an investment bank, it's quite challenging, because what we do is extremely esoteric. We underwrite bonds, we extend loans, we trade exotic derivatives. Go and change the world with that. But that's really the question we ask ourselves. And within a couple of years, I would say we had several hundred people within our CIB division spending a certain amount of time on those questions. And that's when upper middle management, I would say, paid attention, saw that there was a movement, and started to really lay the ground to support this bottom-up movement. And the third stage of the rocket was the upper management a year or two later, embracing the whole initiative, and that was where top-down meets bottom-up, where you have the distributed network, you have the passion within the trenches, and you have the top management setting the tone, giving targets, even challenging targets to galvanize the organization. And today, sustainable finance is a key priority of the bank.
That's fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we're with Hervé Duteil, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer in the Americas for French bank BNP Paribas. I've written in the Caring Economy about great brands being built from the inside out, Hervé. It sounds like that was a grassroots effort within BNP Paribas to really embrace this. I wonder, I also like to say every so often that nobody's cornered the market on good ideas. So it sounds like you have this firmament there at BNP Paribas where people are thinking creatively about the bigger issues and how they can not be window dressing or greenwashing, but really live and breathe the change that we want to see. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, no, it's really true, and we are very lucky to have a management that has really allowed us to continue to operate as networks, I would say, instead of overly organize, especially within traditional structures, the effort. Instead, they've helped this bottom-up movement to continue to grow and blossom. From the outside, it may look a little bit messy, or it may look difficult to understand, because we have probably at least, I can think at least of 20 layers. The sustainable finance layer within our global market division, the sustainable finance stream within our financial and institution banking network. We have numerous layers and communities and networks with many overlaps. And instead of crystallizing all of that within one single top-down chain, we have maintained and grown each of them, creating, of course, a lot of bridges and connection points, but that's how you maintain creativity. Banks, by nature and by necessity, typically must adopt an organization that's at the opposite of creativity. Because of the risks involved in our activities, we must segregate functions, we must segregate duties. So we are a very bicephal world, if that word exists, I'm not sure, but where you have front office and back office, you have businesses and functions, you have, and we tend to, but nowadays, business ideas typically are hybrid between processes, I would say, and traditional business. Think what we used to call IT today, we call digital. What we used to call CSR today, we call sustainability. Mm-hmm. If you try to grow sustainable finance from the CSR function, you'll never make it a business. On the other hand, if you try to grow sustainable finance within, let's say, a trading division, it's going to be dead within 3 days because it doesn't produce yet a penny. So it's how you manage this tension. And we were very lucky to have a management that understood that very well, even though the 99.9% of the bank is built on a very clear segregation of duties. For sustainable finance, we've been able to really cross many lines that have promoted creativity and enabled us to pioneer a lot of new products.
That's fantastic. It actually sounds organic in nature, which seems to just dovetail beautifully with the concept of CSR. As I've also written in my book, I do think that and a sort of utopian place is sort of where you are, where you're moving toward, which is that there's not one person who is responsible for quote unquote caring or sustainability. Really, it's a culture of continual improvement, and it's more of a direction than a point of arrival, right? Everyone has ownership and a responsibility for not just delivering on the bottom line, but also for a more responsible business, a more inclusive business, a brighter future for more people, not fewer. So kudos to you and the team at BNP Paribas. Hervé, we're a little running down on time. I wonder, there's so much more I'd love to talk to you about, but maybe we'll get you back another time. Could you maybe give us some final thoughts on the role of finance and sustainability and BNP Paribas' role in that?
Sure. So, apologies. As I said, I think that the role of finance is clear. That I think we have to remember two things. One, that it's going to be pervasive. It's the enabler that is universal to all initiatives. And at the same time, we must remain humble, remembering that finance by itself doesn't achieve anything. Before the COVID-19 crisis, I was on a panel at one of the last conferences I attended, and the moderator in his intro was telling how much finance was on its way now to save the world. and I started by saying that I had bad news, that finance will not change the world. If anything, the world sorry, that the finance will not save the world, but if anything, that the world will is saving finance. Because finance doesn't change, there's nothing, we're just a pass through. We're just channeling money from those who want to do good towards those that are actually doing those impactful projects. But there's one thing that finance can do, and it's that raised smart. We can attach green strings, green bells and green whistles, where the money that is being lent has some green strings attached to, and where basically you give incentives to others to outbest each other on sustainability. So that's what finance can achieve, and I think it's really a great news. Now that I think most have understood that idea, we need to be careful, however, especially of greenwashing or social washing or sustainability washing. I think everyone has embraced the sustainability. It's available to all, but I don't think everyone is yet ready to commit the ambitious efforts that are necessary. So I think our role will slightly move from advocate, which we will remain, of course, to also guardian, to make sure that sustainable finance is within reach from of most, but at the same time it has a price that I think everyone can reach, but one has to pay the price to be allowed to use those products.
Yes, that's a great final point, Hervé. I have to say, when we see the significant growth in the ESG investment over the past few years, clearly it's one of the fastest, not the fastest growing areas of investing. And thankfully, there are brands like BNP Paribas who've been at this a long time with leadership such as yours. So to help us read, filter, and make sound investments. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank my guest today, Hervé Duteil, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer in the Americas for BNP Paribas, the 8th largest bank in the world. Again, Hervé, thank you, stay well, and please come back.